This episode of The Crossroads is brought to you by the Black Podcast Collective, a growing community of Black creatives. If you are a podcaster, join the collective for networking opportunities and tips for growing your audience. Listen to the weekly show devoted to helping podcasters develop, grow, and sustain their shows. Join the collective by visiting blkpodcollective.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Crossroads. I am your host, Rashida Green, and this is the show for and about environmental justice and those who fight the fight with skin as melanated as the days are long. Knowledge is power, and we are breaking down stereotypes with HBCU alums. Hello. That's right. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest. I will let her introduce herself. Her name is Lavonya Jones. But before we get there, I want us to give some flowers. And Lavonya, I'm going to start with you.
All right.
Who do you want to give some flowers to today?
I would like to give my flowers to Dr. Jeffrey Robinson. He is a professor at Rutgers University, and he's over their entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship programs. And I absolutely love him because he is one of the few Black people in the social entrepreneurship space. He's done a lot of research on social entrepreneurship in Black communities and why it's important for Black communities. And then also, he is the business partner of Dr. Randall Pinkett, who is one of the few Black winners of The Apprentice. And so he's an academic and a businessman, which I love because that is me. And they have overcome so much, and they're always willing to share their knowledge and their wisdom, and I cannot wait for the day when I can just sit at his feet and just glean from him and all his wisdom, because he's super.
That's awesome. I'm going to have to check him out. So my person that I want to give some flowers to is Dr. Janetta B. Cole. And she was the first female president of Spelman College. And she was also president of Bennett College. And so I wanted to give her some flowers, just to round out the discussion that we're planning on having today. So now that we've given the flowers, introduce yourself. Tell us who you are.
Yes, my name is Lavonya Jones. I am originally from Atlanta, Georgia, the city of Atlanta, not the suburb.
All right.
Southwest Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
Zone
the
4.
SWAT, yes.
SWATs to be exact. Yes. Third generation Hamptonian.
HU.
Yes, HU. My uncle and my older sister both went to Hampton, so I really didn't have a choice. So spent half of my career in the entertainment industry. I spent 17 years in the entertainment industry and pivoted to higher ed. High school and college students have always kind of been my sweet spot,
That's awesome.
And we'll get into a little bit more of all the things that I do that entails as we continue the conversation. So yeah.
I wanted to, so, my show has really been centered recently about all the changes that we've had with coronavirus and police brutality and prison reform and all the things. So I wanted to shift a little bit, go back to talking about education. And right now, HBCUs have and continue to have an important place in our culture. And I wanted to know if, from your perspective, how important do you think HBCUs are on not just Black culture, but just pop culture in general? And that can be just the folks that, graduated from HBCUs and are making the culture happen, whatever that means to you.
HBCUs are vital to the culture. HBCUs created the Black middle class. There would be no Black or Black higher class, for that matter, without HBCUs. Of course, before we could go to any other school, there were HBCUs. And of course, The band culture that we see that a lot of schools are implementing come from HBCUs.
Yes.
They impact the culture. A lot of the fashions and all the things that people love about Black culture, a lot of it starts at our HBCUs. Some of the initial founders of hip hop and that were key to the beginnings of hip hop, a lot of them were HBCU grads. So
Right.
it's super important. It's super important to Black culture. Even I have had the opportunity to interact with different people in the Black diaspora from Europe to Africa, and even they understand the importance of HBCUs. W.E.B. Du Bois took his wisdom and went to Africa and shared a lot of his wisdom and insights to help develop the culture in Africa. So HBCUs we are global leaders from an institutional and an individual standpoint. So
Right. And, because I know that you've worked with HBCUs in the past, in addition to, obviously matriculating from one. So what are some of the HBCUs that you've worked with? What are some of the programs that you feel the most pride that you've implemented or worked on?
I have been blessed to do some really cool things. So started my career in higher ed at Morehouse. And one of the first things that I was working in a leadership and professional development class in the business school at Morehouse in order to get some classroom teaching experience. And we noticed a shift in the interview process with students having to do behavior interviews and case study interviews. And so I was able to put together a session for the leadership and professional development class where we had the top 5 consulting firms to come in and do a mock case study workshop with the students, a 2-day workshop, to really prepare students for those case study interviews. Then I went on and I built out the innovation lab at Clark Atlanta.
Wow.
So 3D printing, introducing students to 3D printing, drone technology, artificial intelligence, coding classes, all those things. Yeah, I built out the lab. We had our first University Innovation Fellows, was the program that I ran at Clark Atlanta while I was there. We hosted some of the first hackathons at Clark Atlanta while I was there. We went to our homecoming, which was like our biggest one. So that, and then went back to Morehouse. And the program that I still work with that I'm most proud of at Morehouse is a program called the National Society of Leadership and Success. It's a National Leadership Honor Society. But I love the program because my master's degree is in organizational leadership. To introduce undergraduate students to master level leadership education was really important to me. And the students who are invited and get inducted into the Leadership Honor Society are able to leave school with 3 leadership certificates on their resume. So it's a program that we get to do a lot of cool things. And I've seen students that were shy and, weren't really involved in campus go through our program and really begin to take leadership roles on campus. We've had Phi Beta Kappa members. The last SGA president at Morehouse was a member of the Leadership Honor Society. We've had one of our members now is the president of the Pre-Med Society at Morehouse. And so a lot of the students that have gone through the Leadership Society have really been able to kind of find their space of leadership, even if they're an introverted leader, and go on to do great things. So, yes.
That's awesome. And there's another amazing program that you're working on too.
Yes. And so so I shifted out of Morehouse to now I work with all HBCU students. So I work with an organization called HBCUvc. And as a whole HBCUvc, our vision is really to build a global innovation economy where Black, Indigenous, and Latinx innovators can really boldly create, fail, invest, and thrive. And we focus on that to be able to direct capital, how capital is formed for Black, Indigenous, and Latinx innovators. And so specifically how we do that program is we have a 2-year fellowship program that goes through the academic year where we train HBCU students to be venture capitalists, We place them in internships in VC firms or tech firms. But then their second year, they run our accelerator for HBCU student and alum founders, and we give them a small grant of money to invest in those businesses
Wow.
so they can get investing businesses. So I got into this job because I started the cohort for Morehouse while I was at Morehouse. So
Wow.
yeah, so I launched the first group of HBCUvc fellows at Morehouse, and when the founder, Hadid Mujid, who's amazing, wanted to expand her team, I jumped on the opportunity to be able to lead this fellowship at all of our HBCUs, as well as Hispanic serving institutions. So we have Hispanic serving institutions in New Mexico and in Texas, El Paso, Texas, that we also serve. So, you know, it's a wonderful experience where I really get to serve my HBCU community and also contribute to bridging the racial wealth gap and empowering our people economically, which is what I'm most passionate about. So, yeah.
You know, and there's so many things that you said that I want to touch on. Something that comes up that came up for me in a previous interview where I was talking to the Princeton Blair Town Center, the CEO, and also one of the students there. And, you know, what I was saying to them is that, you know, my mom talked about that the only difference between us as Black folks and white people is exposure. That, you know,
Yeah.
that is what's missing. And if
Yep.
once we have more of that exposure to things, it broadens our, you know, our horizons.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, you know, when I read this about this fellowship program, I just thought that is so excellent and so on brand about and bridging a gap, like you said. You
Mm-hmm.
know, that we know that there is a very serious, extreme racial wealth gap,
Yes.
particularly
Yes.
between, you know, ourselves as Black people and white people, and also for Latinx
Yep.
community too.
Right.
And the fact that your program is set up to support that is excellent. I just really wanted to, I was so excited to hear you.
Thank
I
you.
was so excited to, like, you know, hear you say that. And, you know, in talking about some of the gaps in education,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what are some of the gaps that you see, you know, either from students that
Oh,
when they're first, whatever level, if you see it when they first come in at Morehouse, you don't have to tell tales, because I know we don't want to
right.
tell
All the
tales out of
business. Right. All
school.
the business. But you know, just from me being at
I don't
HBCU
want
and
to do
even
my brothers that way.
right, and even seeing now, times have changed, man. Times have really, really changed, and so when I first moved back to Atlanta after getting my master's degree, I was invited to judge some presentations in the same class I volunteered in, the leadership professional development class. And you know, being from Atlanta, I grew up in the AUC. I was in the AUC every month at least, if not every weekend. Shout out to the AUC. My godmother graduated from Morris Brown. So I was at all the homecomings and everything.
Okay.
And so you have a certain expectation of Morehouse. And so when I came on campus, you know, the students were like some of the most respectful men I had ever been engaged in. Just so nice, you know, opened the door for me, all that good stuff. So I get into the class and I'm expecting to see certain things in these presentations. And unfortunately, and this is not a slight to the teacher, this is just the times that we live in, because I've seen this in other places, that the students weren't as prepared as they should be to do presentations. And standards at schools are very different. And I'm like, we have to change this. And so the professor allowed me to come into her class and kind of serve as a grad assistant. And we would literally have students come to the class that were like, they had never seen anyone in a suit before they came to Morehouse.
Woo.
Yeah. So you have a very different demographic of students coming to Morehouse. And at this time, I was also judging business competitions at Emory University. And there was a difference, as you talked about, in the level of exposure of those students at Emory as opposed to the students at Morehouse. And so I really wanted to be a catalyst for change, to really get the students up to par to some of these students that are coming out of Ivy League schools. Now, there are some areas that Morehouse students can run circles around some of these students, but there are other areas like venture capital education and financial education, that, or even entrepreneurship education, that a lot of our students don't have exposure to. And so
Right.
in the education space, we really have to bridge those gaps. And one of the things, I'm going to say this, and people might get mad at me, but I don't care. I like being controversial.
Uh-oh.
At our HBCUs, we always complain about the resources that we don't have. And we can't do this because we don't
Yeah,
have these resources. But truth be told, we have everything we need in our alum. Any resource
that's
or
true.
whatever skill set we need, there is an alum from our institutions that probably has that resource, that has those skill sets, or has access to it. And so as
Yeah,
institutions, we have to do a better job of engaging our alum to support the things that our students need on the campus. But
I agree.
the faculty is stretched thin at HBCU. Faculty is stretched thin, administration is stretched thin, and they can only do so much. But as institutions, we have to really learn how to leverage our alumni network to give the students that additional support that they need.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's it's so triggering because I just remember that was a complaint that we had, like, we need more of this,
Mm-hmm.
like we were complaining about the food in the cafeteria. And
Mm-hmm.
now as a complete vegetarian, looking back on fried chicken Wednesdays, I
Mm-hmm.
wish
Mm-hmm.
just
Now
to at
the
least sniff it again. Like,
right, I will say the food has improved, man. I remember, because I mean, at Hampton when I was there, food, we knew we was getting good food on Thanksgiving, before Christmas
oh yeah,
holiday, and Resurrection Sunday, Easter Sunday. We knew that we was gonna have good
yes.
food, but other than that, it's kind of hit and miss. But man, when I went to Clark Atlanta, and the first time I ate in the cafeteria, and it was on they do like a Caribbean day now in the AUC, where they have like
What?
jerk. Yes, they have jerk chicken and black beans and plantains.
Oh
I was
my
like, oh,
God.
oh, this is amazing. I took a picture. It's on my Instagram. Because I
I
was
will look.
yeah. So the food definitely has changed, and
That's
students
crazy.
definitely have better options than we had when I was in school. So,
But you know what though? I understand what you're saying about needing to, keep the standards high.
yeah.
And and just because I know that we're probably, what I would say, in a position where we're going to be shifting language soon, where how
Mm-hmm.
things are spelled, our homonyms, all that stuff is just going to either go away or melt into one
Mm-hmm.
single word that's going to mean multiple things, or however it transforms,
Right.
as it has.
Right.
But I still think fundamentally there's obviously some gaps, and I think one of the main areas, at least from my perspective, is history. And
Oh yeah.
when I was in college, we had, you know ADW, African Diaspora in the World,
Mm-hmm.
where
Mm-hmm.
which was like basically like the Matrix,
Right. Yeah.
taking it was taking the blindfolds off, and the things that we learned. I mean, everyone changed. I mean, there's a lot of memes about how when you look when you're a freshman and how
Right.
you look by the time you're a sophomore or a senior, and it's the
Yeah.
truth,
Yeah.
because you just kind of go through this rebirth. Do you see that too with the students? Do you see like that the lack also being of knowledge of our history?
Oh yes. Yes. And especially so growing up in Atlanta, man. Like I remember my upbringing in Atlanta was super Afrocentric. Like I remember going and sit at the griot and hearing, ancient African stories. Yeah, like
Okay,
that was
come on, trendy
culture.
Pan African, come on.
Culture in culture in the 80s and 90s in Atlanta was amazing. And so I grew up with my first Bible had black people in it. I didn't grow up with a white Jesus. Like
That's the
yeah.
title of this episode.
So
Boom, done.
yeah, so it's like I had books that featured black people, and so I was surrounded by representation of myself. But
Hmm.
unfortunately, things have changed, especially in our school system. Like, I mean, we celebrated Kwanzaa at my elementary school. I learned African
Girl,
dancing and
what?
African. Yes, I learned African dancing and African drumming at my elementary school. That is
That's
no longer the
crazy.
case. That is no longer the case here in Atlanta, and in schools
Oh
around the
yeah.
country. That is no longer the case. And so, I, of course, in the AUC, we have school students that are from Atlanta. And I mean, I've talked to students that don't, you're from Atlanta, and you don't know who Joseph Lowry is. You just know he got a street, and you
Yeah.
don't know who this man is.
Mm.
And it's just
Or
like outside
Abernathy.
of, right, or Abernathy, they don't know who these people are. Um, and just even like when I went to college, I took a chematology class where we
Hmm.
studied chematology and the history of Africa. I had a professor that traveled to Africa every year. And so, Morehouse is definitely starting to do a lot more of that. They have the most like study abroad trips for our students that I have ever seen. So, I
Wow.
mean, there definitely needs to be more training of students should come to a HBCU and learn their history. They should know who key people are. Even Atlanta, in the business schools, learning who the key business people here are, like Alonzo Herndon, or
Yes.
what is the, oh Lord, I'm not just DL Moody, the construction guy, CL Moody, but also I'm drawing a blank. That's so bad. The other construction company here, that's like a large Russell family.
Oh,
The Russell
okay.
family. Yes. H.J. Russell. So knowing who H.J. Russell is, I mean, he built the city of Atlanta, and those are people we
Mm-hmm.
should be talking about in our business schools. But one of the things I noticed from when my sister was at a HBCU, she graduated class of '89, so you know, far ahead of me
Yes.
compared to when I'm
That's
at
back in the
school.
day.
Right. She didn't have as many international professors or professors who weren't from that area. I remember being in elementary school and going to science and math camp at Clark Atlanta University. And, the professors being from the area and familiar with the culture and the surrounding history of the area. And so when you have professors that are not knowledgeable of the history, then
Mm.
that's not going to translate to the students. And so there's a gap I see with our students in understanding professional standards, in understanding their
Mm-hmm.
history, and how business works. I've been in neighborhoods where I've done camps, and you ask a student, "Do you want to be an entrepreneur?" And they're like, "No, I don't want to be an entrepreneur. Why I want to be an entrepreneur?" But then you ask them, "Do you want to be your own boss?" And they're like, "Yeah." Like we literally have a generation of students that don't even know what the word entrepreneurship is.
Yeah.
So exposure really, really makes the difference. And that's one of the things I always try to make it a point with students to invite in speakers. And then it makes a difference too when you're inviting people that look like them. Before
Right.
you invite people just because they're connected to a Fortune 100 company or a major institution, it
Right.
is more impactful when you bring in someone who may be at their level but has walked the same path that the students have walked. It
Mm-hmm.
definitely, the students learn more, and it's definitely more impactful when they see people that say, "Wow, you used to be where I am, and now you're here." So that also means I can get
Right.
here. And
Right.
I just have countless stories of how being at a HBCU has changed a student's life who was a first generation college student and came from a high crime area, a high poverty area, and they were able to leave college and make more money than their family had ever seen just
Mm-hmm.
because of the opportunities they took advantage of. So there are definitely a lot of gaps, but there are a lot of great things that HBCUs provide to students. Um, in supporting them to, like I said, HBCUs built the Black middle class. There would be
Yes.
no Black or higher middle class without HBCUs. It wouldn't
Right.
exist.
Now, I have a anecdotal story and then a question.
Okay.
So I was at work taking care of a call, and
Mm-hmm.
the person I was talking to asked me if I had gone to, where I'd gone to school. And as I think I mentioned that I'd gone to school in Atlanta. So she was like, "Oh, so did you go to Clark?" And being funny, of course, because, very
Mm-hmm.
much so on brand, I'm
Right.
like, "Madam, raise your standards." Never, which is not true. Shout out to Clark. You all
Clark
are
is,
amazing.
yes,
This is not, it's not
CAU
a
is the
read
best.
actually, and happy anniversary because their anniversary was, I think it was
Yes.
last week.
Yeah, it was.
Um, so shout out to Clark. But just in just saying this to her, and she's, she didn't know. So I, obviously I
Right.
said, I went to Spelman, and she's like, that's the thing. We don't know anything about that being where I'm from. She was living in Chicago, and she's
Oh
like, we
wow.
don't know anything about that stuff. She's like,
Hmm.
I didn't know about HBCUs like that. I didn't know about historically Black colleges. And I said, I've known about I've known about HBCUs my entire life. I'm like, my mother is she went to Virginia State. She
Hmm.
always told me that, this is what I was going to do. I grew up watching the movie. I'm really going to date myself. What About Your Friends?
Oh yes.
Where all the girls are supposed to go to Spelman together. Like, that's what I
Yes.
grew up with. So that,
Right.
I was used to that.
Yeah.
But so the question that I want to ask is, because I was having another separate conversation with a friend, and she asked me if I thought that HBCUs or academia are elitist.
Hmm.
And so what is your take on that? And then I think her discussion about that, she and I were more so discussing HBCUs as being elitist, and
Hmm.
just want to know what your thoughts, marinate on
Yeah.
that, but like what your thoughts are.
Um, I don't think HBCUs as an institution are elitist. You definitely have elitist people at HBCUs.
Yes, we do.
And
Yes, we
I
do.
have seen that, you know. But it goes to the environment people grow up in, especially like Morehouse and Spelman,
Yeah.
because a lot of Morehouse and Spelman students are legacy. I think at Morehouse, the first generation student rate is only 30%, whereas at Clark Atlanta is 70%.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So, you have a different, and I always tell people, because like when I talk to people who are not familiar with HBCUs and they've heard of Spelman and Morehouse, they
Hmm.
automatically have in their mind, oh, those poor Black students at HBCU. And I'm like, Spelman and Morehouse are different. That is not what you're dealing with.
Oh,
Spelman
my
and Morehouse.
goodness.
Like you are dealing with a more privileged group of students.
Yeah.
And
Did you
so
hear
when you
that
come from a
laugh,
more,
that cackle of mine of
yeah,
me, a dumb peasant? Like, okay, keep
right,
going.
absolutely not. Yeah, so because you have people who have grown up in privilege and are far
Hmm.
removed from high poverty environments, they just don't know. But that's the
Right.
beauty of an HBCU, is that these students can come and mingle with people from different socioeconomic backgrounds than they come
True.
from, and they can learn each other's stories, and then they expose those who don't come from their privileged backgrounds to higher standards of living and luxury and going overseas and things like that. I mean, I know
Yeah.
students who came to Morehouse and Spelman as orphans,
Mm.
and they left and they, making money that most Americans make and living
Yeah.
high on the horse, but they also give back. And
Mhm.
so no one gives back like HBCU students and HBCU alum.
Thank
Like
you for saying that.
nobody gives back like we do. We definitely, most of us, reach back and bring our sisters and brothers up with us. So I do not believe that HBCUs as an institution, but as in every group, you have people that are elitists. But as a whole,
Yeah.
no. Like we help each other out. And I think that's just the culture. The culture is that we're responsible for each other. And that's
Because
something
over the
that we're
years,
taught.
some of our schools have been in jeopardy, or been
Yeah.
either of threats of losing their accreditation,
Mm-hmm.
like Bennett College, for instance, and like
Yeah.
everybody rallied together and
Right.
we made it happen for
Whether
them,
you went to that school or not. Like,
Right.
I mean, even right now, with Morris Brown working to get their accreditation back and
Yeah.
getting their programs, like my Morehouse students come to me and say, hey, Morris Brown is having this fundraiser. Can we do a
Mm,
car wash? Can we do something to help them raise money
that's
to get
awesome.
their accreditation? They go and volunteer over there. When last year, Morris Brown had what was it? It was like a day for students from California. And when I tell you
Mm.
the whole city from California came out
Oh,
Morris Brown
wow.
to support them and to,
That's
give
awesome.
funding, and they raised money. So like even if we didn't go to that school, like we support each other. And we
Yeah.
rally around, like, if there's a way we can help, we will step in and help each other.
And that to me is the beauty of HBCUs. I remember when I was a freshman at Spelman, and during freshman week, and everything's a week. Like our homecomings are a week, freshman orientation is a week.
Yes.
But there were so many great things that happened, during freshman orientation, which are part of which was meeting, our Morehouse brothers, which is a huge ceremony and very
Yes.
special. But also, Morris Brown was one of the only HBCUs founded by Black people.
Yes.
And that has to
Exactly.
be called into the conversation, because as we're, obviously very celebratory of where we went to school, we have to admit that a lot of them were started by white people.
Yes. And not all of them with a good motive. When they
No.
were started. So yeah, we definitely have to acknowledge that history and celebrate and rally around the institutions that we do have that were started by us, for us.
And, because I think we're coming to the point where we're in the crossroads. So something else I wanted to bring into the conversation too is when you mentioned something about some of the gaps that you've seen working with students and being at Morehouse. So an area that I think we could do a better job with is having a larger presence with the students and environmental justice. And Dr. Robert Bullard, shout out to him. And also thank you for following me on Twitter. I'm serious. Like when I tell you that I almost quit my job, like, because I'm famous now, I can retire.
Real life.
Rock Nation brunch, here I come. But like, I was really excited for him to follow me. But that's what he's very a proponent of. We should be working more with HBCUs and using those as hubs for environmental justice, because most of the time, unfortunately, as we know, it's changing a little bit.
Yes.
But Black schools are notorious for being in Black neighborhoods, which were at one point very prominent, like the West End. But because of white flight, and other things, it fell to disrepair. But it's a beautiful neighborhood.
Yes. Yes.
And so.
Go ahead.
No. Keep going. I'm done.
No, I was gonna say, and I commend Spelman for really kind of being at the forefront of that. Spelman has been doing a lot around green initiatives and environmental justice. They have a club for that. They do a lot in the city where they work with some of the other schools like Emory around environmental justice. There is one of the leading urban farmers here, Truly Living Well. They have an urban garden near campus now that the students go in and work and volunteer. And there have been talks on campus of having like a market, where students could sell produce on campus. They have been having conversations about that. I know Clark Atlanta is doing some things around aquaponics. I hope I'm saying that right, but yes. So they are definitely, and shout out to the schools that are pioneering that, like Fort Valley State, Prairie View A&M are doing a lot around environmental justice and green initiatives. Even we've had some fellows come through our program at HBCUvc that are agricultural majors. I've seen majors of agriculture economics. So that is definitely growing at our HBCUs. And what I like about it is that it's the schools who are in areas where they can lead that. So like, Fort Valley State is in a very rural area.
Right.
And it's also an impoverished area, but they're learning how to do that. And even shout out to one of the institutions I look at, really is kind of like on my top list of one of my favorite HBCUs outside of my own alma mater, Paul Quinn College. Like when their president came in and they were in trouble of losing their accreditation, he got rid of their football program, turned the football field into an urban farm that the students could work in and sell that produce to those in the city, because that area was also having some challenges around food access. And so our HBCUs are really, and a lot of the presidents are looking at this issue around food access to justice issues. And even now they have a date in the AUC that is completely dedicated to environmental justice, where they do
That's awesome.
cleanup around the West End. They do recycling initiatives. They even talk about water quality, and because we have an entrepreneur here who has an app that lets you know what's in your water, and she talks about how we always talk about Flint, but there are thousands of other communities around the country, thousands that have
Girl,
higher lead levels than Flint. And so some of the students on those days, they even tackle that.
see, this is about alignment because I
Yes,
literally, the episode that I put out was
yes,
about them PIFAs. And here we
yes,
are once
yes,
again talking about these things because again is the beauty and also like some of the heartbreak of being at an
mm-hmm.
HBCU is that you get again or maybe for the first time depending on your on your social status,
Yeah,
but you get to see like what the real effects of poverty look like, of
yes,
underservice,
mm-hmm.
and all the things that you named: water quality, health, food access. I mean, we were a little fortunate in the sense that if you wanted to have a plant-based meal, the Black Hebrew Israelites
Yes,
had soul veg, and you could go. I man,
yeah,
those the fried tofu fish sandwich with the
mm-hmm.
fish batter,
Mm-hmm.
girl,
Yes,
so good. Them
yes,
collard greens. Anyway, so
yes, yes.
I miss Atlanta sometimes. I
Great,
really
it's a
do.
great place.
But this is when I was eating meat. So I was also going to Gutbusters when it was open.
Yeah, I don't think
It's
Ghostbusters
like
is still
a
open,
relic.
but we have a lot more vegan and vegetarian restaurants in the city around Atlanta,
Yeah.
around the school. There's even a raw vegan place, like literally right down, like maybe 10 minutes from campus, that students
Yeah.
have access to. So, yeah, it is definitely growing, and students on campus are becoming more educated about that and about nutrition and things because it affects everything. It affects their performance as students.
Yeah.
So, but I can truly say that in the AUC, Spelman is really leading that cause and that initiative.
No surprises there. No surprises there. I mean, we're
Right.
not surprised, are we? No, of course not. Of course not. Of course not. Been making
Exactly.
champions since 1881. So it's like
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
I didn't promise that I wouldn't cut up. I didn't promise that. So, you know, of when you think about going back to HBCUvc, you know, what like do you have any stories of students who have finished the program and are now out here and on the come up, or any stories that you or any of the student stories that you feel are compelling that you want to share about it?
Yeah, man. Oh, where do I start? I have some. Our students, man, they truly leave and do amazing things and change the world. One of the first students I encountered at Morehouse, he was a first generation college student. He had transferred in from a junior college. It just came from a family where he was the only one to like make it.
Wow.
Had a daughter while he had a child already while he was attending Morehouse, and he was able
Woo!
to leave and work for one of the top 5 consulting firms. He's a senior consultant there, making more money
Nice.
than his family ever seen.
Wow.
And he
Wow.
also and he has his own business, doing amazing things. I have a student who was valedictorian at Morehouse. He was from the Bahamas, an international student. Same thing, didn't come from a privileged background, but
Hmm.
became valedictorian at Morehouse. Was able to
Wow.
leave, and it was just announced in the news that he got accepted into this venture capital fellowship program. He went um, into IB in investment banking after Morehouse. Some of my Clark Atlanta students, they're doing great things in film and innovation, inventing stuff.
Hmm.
Some of the students that went through the lab, stuff that I don't even know what it is. I have one student, actually, yeah, she was my student at Clark Atlanta. She has a wonderful nonprofit. I'm going to shout her out because it's amazing. Leah Hernandez. She has a nonprofit where she trains young people to write books, write their story. And then they sell
Wow.
those, they have a demo day where they sell those books, and the money that they make from those books goes into a savings account for them. So she's
Wow.
tackling the reading issue. She's also tackling the finance issue. And she started this program while she was at Clark Atlanta, and it has just
Wow.
taken flight. I mean, she's helped, I know, over 50 students write their own book. I mean, and I'm talking about elementary age, like this 8, 9, 10-year-olds write books.
Wow.
And she employs interns from the AUC. And
That's awesome.
she just graduated 2 years ago. And just
What?
yes, real boss. Okay,
Wow.
homegirl is doing. We
Wow.
have a Spelman alum that is a Chick-fil-A operator. So I mean, they just go
Hmm.
on to do amazing things. They have a Morehouse
Yeah.
alum. There's one of the few black men on the board of governors with the Federal Reserve. Um, I mean, I can truly say AUC graduates are, and I went to Hampton, but I can truly say AUC graduates are history makers, change
Yeah.
makers. I mean, we have, people from Hampton that go on to do great things. And, I feel like Hampton, we kind of lay low with ours a little bit, but AUC folk, they be changing
Not us.
lives, man. No, y'all be changing lives. So I have countless stories, man, of just students that have just really gone on to do amazing things. I mean, we had one student who was able to leave, and he was so amazing. His offers, he was on track to make 6 figures his first year after undergrad. Like,
Oh
how
my
super special.
God. See, this is what happens when you graduate during a recession.
During a recession, okay? So
Ugh.
yeah, I mean, I have
Oof.
countless stories of students just really doing amazing things. Students in real estate, and we talk about our communities being gentrified, and they're going in and buying up houses. There's a Morehouse
Right.
alum. I think he's like a 15 grade. He's one of the top black developers here in Atlanta.
See, if anyone doesn't know, like you need to stay connected with your alums. Like they are
Yes,
the shoulders on which you stand. If you were in a non-air conditioned dorm in the South in August, there was undoubtedly countless people before you who were angry and awake and unable to sleep. And
yeah,
they made it so that maybe potentially you could get some AC in your dorm in that same dorm,
right,
like
right,
and even not even just that for networking opportunities.
yes,
You know, I I mentioned or I maybe I didn't mention this, but something we said when we were, when I was at Spelman is, leaning on the shield,
yes,
how, that's what you do. If you
mm-hmm.
need someone, you reach out and there's someone that, one of your sisters in our
Yes,
case are there to help you. And I just think, regardless of what class or anything, what you
yeah,
enter in, where you enter in, you can find your tribe. Like
yes,
I had very serious reservations at first going to an HBCU because I'm like, I ain't trying to get picked on anymore. I finally got into a reasonable place in my life. I
right,
don't want no more fuck shit. I want
right,
to get along.
right,
And where did I find? I found a school full of girls who were also the only black girl in their
class.
gifted classes
Mm-hmm.
and understood where I was coming from. And we all danced to Shake That Monkey. I mean,
Yes, you find your tribe, man. Yeah, like you can't be the HBCU network. I mean, I remember, like, if I was just bored in my dorm, like I could go sit out on the waterfront in Hampton, and I was gonna run into somebody I knew, or go sit out.
right.
If I was having a down day, I could just go sit in the student center, give me some ice cream, and somebody I knew was gonna come through, and we was gonna have some good conversation and some laughs. Like,
Yep.
you find your
Yep.
tribe, and and we have our challenges like every other school, but going to HBCU can really be good for your mental health. I have my
Yes.
nephew right
Oh,
now
girl.
who he grew up in one of the more affluent white neighborhoods here in Atlanta. And same thing, was picked on a lot as a child. He was able to do some great things, but he chose to go to
Mhm.
a HBCU because of that. He's at Tennessee State. And when I tell you, this brother has found himself,
Girl.
he
Girl.
has found himself. He done found his people, and he loves it. He
Ugh.
loves every minute of it. And it's just the opportunities that are available to him. I mean, he sung. Um, I forgot the name of that big theater in Nashville that everybody. Go. It's really
Oh,
famous.
the Grand Ole Opry.
Yeah, he sung at the Grand Ole Opry his freshman year, like, because
Wow,
he's a music
that's
major.
nice.
Yeah, he's a music major, and so to be able to, like, how many people were trying to get in the Grand Ole Opry, and you did that at your freshman year because you went to a HBCU, like,
Right. I
to get
mean,
those
ugh,
opportunities. Yeah, so
it's like
it's amazing.
when you said that that HBCUs are good for your mental health. I mean, when I got when I set foot on that campus, I needed it. I didn't realize how much I needed it
Right. Yeah.
until
Same here.
I got there, got through like the uncomfortable transition from being at home and all that. And I needed what I learned in ADW. I needed to have that Black experience
Yeah.
because I had it. By
Right.
my senior year in high school, I had
Same
enough.
here. I
And
ran out of my high school, honey. Ran.
I people I remember very very vividly in my yearbook people literally saying, "I'm sure you can't wait to get away from all these white people." Literally
Wow.
in my yearbook because I'd had it.
Yeah.
And being there, being at Spelman, being in Atlanta, and having other girls say to me, "I know exactly what you feel like. I know exactly how that feels." I too am afraid to go natural, which when I was a freshman was like unheard of. But,
Yeah.
I
Now it's
mean,
the thing.
good God.
Yeah.
But
I
the
mean,
beauty part is there was a girl that could braid hair. There was another girl that was a whiz with a hot comb. So
right.
you didn't have to worry.
I had one of my friends in college. She got her cosmetology license in high school, so she
Oh,
was doing all our hair, honey. But I
doing
mean, I
everybody's hair.
remember just the support. Like I had dorm room mothers, that were there for me to talk to and pray with me and get advice from. And or I was having a bad day, and I remember like sometimes my friends would just come sit in my room with me and just be there,
Mm-hmm.
just to be that support. So it's such an important supportive environment. You can find people, like I'm a big thinker, and to be able to talk to my professors about my ideas and they not look at me crazy and they're like,
Right,
instead of like looking at you like, who are you to do that? Like, no, yeah, you should do that. And this is how you can do it.
right,
And let me connect you to this person that you can talk to that can
right.
help you do that. You're not gonna find that. You're not gonna find that anywhere else than at HBCU.
Have you ever been wearing like some of your, paraphernalia and been out in public and had people be like, "Hey,"
Yeah, and so I purposely wear my paraphernalia everywhere. So I do that on purpose. And we have class names at Hampton. So you're either Onyx, Ogre, Phi Ogre,
We do
or
too.
Quintessence. Yes. And so, and you see a Hamptonian, honey, it's real. Like, what you, Onyx 4, Onyx 6, okay, little sis, what's up? So yeah,
Wow.
like, I mean, even like for me, I tell my students to be the brand, especially like Morehouse. So when I worked at Morehouse, I would purposely go out with my Morehouse gear on. And it will
Hmm.
automatically start conversations because people are like, that's an all male school. You ain't go to Morehouse. So, and
Well,
then I would be able to have a conversation about what we were doing and what our students was doing. And, just the amount of support and things, the people I was able to bring back into supporting the school just because I walked outside with my Morehouse shirt on.
right.
Or students, that stopped me in the grocery store, like, I'm thinking about going to Clark Atlanta. Could you tell me more about it? And so yeah, I wear my paraphernalia every time I walk out the door, purpose.
It's funny you say that. I do now. Now, if I'm out and about, I make sure I will wear something usually.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But I at first, well, when I was at college, I mean, good Lord, I mean, we wore shirts, everything, all the time. The shadier, the better. We had the shadiest t-shirts. Oh my God, just like rude, but we wore them. It
Yes.
was so rude. That's why people don't understand like the rivalry. They're like, I don't get it. It's like, listen, this has been instilled in us. Let us
Yes.
have our hatred.
And we can talk about each other, but you better not talk about us if you
But
ain't go
you
to
better not talk
HBCU.
about us because we will ride it down. Like when that fool white man fixed his mouth to say that Howard should open up its campus to let him and his dumb friends walk their fool ass dogs. When I tell you the wrath,
Yes.
the
Absolutely not.
wrath, I'm still talking about it.
Absolutely
Big
not.
face idiot. Anyway, I'm
It's fine. It's perfectly fine. Absolutely.
like the campus of Howard University has better things to do with its time and grass than for you and your dog. Okay.
Right. It's a whole city. DC is big.
Ugh,
You can walk your dog
just
somewhere
the
else.
disrespect. Just the disrespect.
Yeah,
But again, that
disrespect.
just shows, for us, and that's the thing that I remember too about, my experience being in HBCU is like, we knew, all of us knew, when you're, especially if, when we were all in Atlanta together, it was like, okay, this is where we are. Everyone knows Spelman, everyone knows Morehouse and Clark and Morris Brown. But sometimes, when you're away from that area,
Oh yeah.
people don't really know it. And I found myself having to kind of, mostly for white people, having to like legitimize my school for a while, not so much now, but
Hmm. I don't.
there was, hmm?
Maybe with the arrogance I come across when you ask me about an HBCU, I've never had to legitimize because it's like,
White people,
why
I don't
didn't you?
know.
But I mean,
Right.
I've had white people in Atlanta, like they'll see me with the Morehouse. They're like, "Oh, did you go there?" I'm like, "Baby, it's a all male
No,
school.
stupid. No, I didn't go there.
It's an all male school. I can't go
Stupid.
there. It's all male." They're like, "Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that." And then I'm able to educate them. But
okay,
I
fair.
think I probably come off with a certain air when you talk about HBCUs because you're not gonna dismiss an HBCU around me. Absolutely not.
I think that was more of when first going, and then afterwards it was like, look, girl, I go to Spelman the college.
The
I don't know
college,
about you,
okay?
what and that was, so I grew into it because again, that's one of the beauties of freshman week is you learn all these things, and then nobody can
Mm-hmm.
tell you anything because
Nothing.
you've been through a week through of learning songs and
Yes.
traditions and saying goodbye to your parents. Like there's a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
by the end, when someone was like, "Oh, what school do you go to?" and I was like, "Spelman," and they're like, "I've never heard of that." I'm like, oh, "Well,
And they
you're gonna learn
like
today."
PWIs. I don't care what PWI you went to. I don't care if you went to the top. They don't have the camaraderie and that connection to the school that we have. That's why our homecomings are so lit
No. Oh
because they
my
don't have
God. My
that.
God, today.
Yes.
I saw that homecoming for us is canceled.
Yes.
And I'm not surprised. I mean, we saw it coming, but
Yeah.
it
We
doesn't
got to
mean
fix
that the
it.
hurt I feel isn't real.
And
Like,
I'm real hurt because so Hampton was in the Battle of the Bands this year, and
oh,
I could not go because unfortunately I had a family funeral to go to. So I was
yeah.
really looking forward to homecoming because I
Me too.
missed the Battle of the Bands,
Hmm.
and I felt some kind of way, and now I can't go.
Yeah.
And it was going to be my 15-year class reunion, and I missed my 10-year. So this was my year. This is
This
my
was my
year,
year too. It was,
but it
yeah,
broke
I
my
was
heart.
supposed to do the same thing, and I was actually pretty disappointed because this would have been a great time to go and, but
Yes,
see how
it's
this
all
foolishness
good.
is set up.
Pandemic because people don't want to
Not
wash their
today,
hands and wear a
Satan.
mask.
I know.
And
I'm
now we
like,
can't have
it's
homecoming.
fine. Now we can't have homecoming because you girls want to get into fights outside of Red Lobster,
Right.
you uncouth, uncultured heathens.
Right. As
Are
Harvey
you
says, where is your
crazy? You think this
decorum?
is the
Where is
best the
your
shrimp can
decorum?
taste?
Right.
I don't even understand what we're talking about. Like when I literally, like when I saw Red Lobster trending on Twitter, I was like, this must be a joke, or maybe they did something funny. No, there was a line outside of the
Insane.
door where people allegedly have been waiting for, and I quote, hours to get
Some
shrimp
red lobster shrimp.
scampi, English shrimp at Red Girl. Go to hell.
No.
So
Right.
that's why we can't go nowhere because
Right.
you fool want to throw yourself in front of a poor safety
That's
officer or a
crazy.
poor employee because you won't wear a mask, jeopardizing him and everybody else with your stupid ass. You have to change the subject because I'm
Right.
getting angry. The
Sorry.
fact,
Sorry.
listen, I've had to
Change subject.
mourn brunch. I'm mourning the white
Right.
party. I'm angry,
Yes. I feel
but
you.
I'm gonna stay in the house.
I feel you. I really feel you. I miss my
Girl,
students.
how do we get here? How do we
I
get
don't
here?
know. You can't talk about HBCU and not talk about homecoming. That's just kind
You
of
can't. You really can't.
you can't.
We've
That's how
done
it
well
goes.
so far. We hadn't talked about it. And I
Yeah,
was like, maybe we can get
we
through this
live.
conversation without talking
No,
about it.
we live for
No,
homecoming.
we do. We really do. Homecoming is just such a, oh my God. It's just such
It's
an, I
good for
remember
your mental health. It is a
it
mental health
is. It's
event.
good for your mental health. It's just good to see the generations before you, all the former
Yes.
for us, Miss Maroon and White or Miss Spellman, and just seeing them
Yeah.
dressed up in their regalia. And you can't get that anywhere else. You
Nope.
can't. One of my friends, I asked her who she had at her homecoming. She said, Jimmy Eat World. I was like, girl, bless your heart. Not us. Not us. We have Atlanta's finest coming to entertain us all week long. Those were the days. So, are there any shout outs that you want to give? Any acknowledgments you want to give before we close the show?
Yes. Shout out to HBCUvc. Shout out to all our HBCUvc fellows that are doing great things this summer, interning at these venture capital firms.
Yes.
Bringing a little color to the venture capital space.
Sprinkling it on top. The seasoning.
Yes. Shout out to Dr. Belinda Johnson White.
Yes.
A Spelman alum, leadership professor at Morehouse, because I would not be here without her. We would not be having this conversation without her. So she is leadership at Morehouse. She's amazing. So shout out to her. And shout out to my Hamptonians. I love y'all. If anyone's listening to this, I'm going to share this with my Hamptonians, by the way. So shout out to them. And shout out to all the Black people making waves, fighting for justice for our people, whether it be environmental, racial justice, economic justice. Shout out to all of y'all. We need everybody in the fight, everybody playing their lane, everybody in their role. No role is better than the other. Everybody got to play their part. And so shout out to all of them.
Just for me, definitely shout out to Spelman, shout out to the AUC, and shout out to pretty much just every HBCU in Virginia, because I can't leave Hampton out. I obviously can't leave Virginia State out as well. They're both excellent HBCUs. And
Norfolk State.
Oh my God. Yes. And they're all excellent. And I just appreciate being from a state that has so much, like Virginia has a lot of Black culture, and so does Atlanta. And I just, shout out to the AUC, and the storms is coming. And if, as good country people, we're supposed to get off the phone and turn the lights off while the Lord does his work. We're not even supposed to be doing this. Our grandmothers would have a fit.
They would. My mom is
if they knew that we were on here cutting up.
Right.
I know.
And the
grandmothers. Shout out to Big Mama.
Yes, for real.
Frying fish and putting it in tinfoil with boiled eggs.
Biscuits,
thank you.
Man, the biscuits. You can't forget the biscuits. Okay.
We cannot forget the biscuits.
My God, today, yes.
That's the thing. HBCUs are like a Big Mama. It was like our lemonade, just for 4 years of just glorious bosom. Just a bosom of excellence and love and moisture. All right, that's enough. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here with me. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.